Hare Krishna, everyone. Welcome back to the daily readings of Srila Prabhupada's books. I'm sitting here with a local saint, Shamagori, who's feeding us like you can't imagine. Every time I stay here, between the time I come and the time I go, I feel 100% better every time. And also, she just got wonderful Kornitai deities, Nitai Gora Sundar, and she's happy as a lark. And they look beautiful. They look absolutely ecstatic. And we have our wandering new brahmachari mendicant, Bhaktamat, our techie. And the three of us are here in Folkestone, in the Wisteria College, just getting more and more enlightened, getting more and more knowledge from Srila Prabhupada, unlimited. It's just unlimited and wonderful. So we welcome all of you back to this transcendental experience of reading Prabhupada's books every day. Okay, so first we're going to read Sanatana Goswami's transcendental glorification of the Srimad-Bhagavatam, from which we can learn deeply what we're doing and why. It's called the Srimad-Bhagavata Mahima Stotram. It goes like this. Sarva Shastrabdi Piyusha Sarva Vedaika Satpala Sarva Siddhanta Ratnadya Sarva Lokaika Drikprada. O nectar from the ocean of all scriptures, singular fruit of all the Vedas, rich mine of the precious gems of all conclusive truths, you are the only giver of sight to all the worlds. Sarva Bhagavata Prana Srimad Bhagavata Prabho Kalidvantoditaditya Sri Krishna Parivartita. O life air of all the Supreme Lord's devotees, O Master, Srimad Bhagavatam, you are the sun risen in the darkness of Kali. You are the exact image of Sri Krishna. Paramananda Pataya Prema Varshakshadayate Sarvada Sarvasevyaya Sri Krishnaya Namostume. I bow down to you, who are supremely blissful to read. Your every syllable pours down a flood of prema. You can always be served by everyone. You are Sri Krishna himself. Madeka Bando Matsangin Madguro Man Mahadana Man Nistaraka Mad Bhagya Mad Ananda Namostute. My only friend, my constant companion, my spiritual master, my great wealth, my savior, my good fortune, my source of ecstasy, I bow down to you. Asadu sadhu tadayin adini chochata kara anamun chagadachin mam premnarit kantayospura. O bestower of saintliness to the unsaintly, O exalter of the most fallen, please never leave me. Always appear in my heart and my voice with pure love. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. All right, continuing with the teachings of Lord Kapila Dev to his mother, Devahuti. We're still hearing about the material nature, Samkhya philosophy, and how it will lead in its pure state to pure devotional service to Lord Krishna. So we're starting with chapter 27, third canto, Srimad-Bhagavatam. We're starting with text 26. The influence of material nature cannot harm an enlightened soul, even though he engages in material activities, because he knows the truth of the Absolute and his mind is fixed on the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Purport. Lord Kapila says that Mai Manasam, a devotee whose mind is always fixed upon the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is called Atmarama, or Vidita Tattva. Atmarama means one who rejoices in the self, or one who enjoys in the spiritual atmosphere. Atma, in the material sense, means the body or the mind. But when referring to one whose mind is fixed on the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord, Atmarama means one who is fixed in spiritual activities in relationship with the Supreme Soul. The Supreme Soul is the personality of Godhead, and the individual soul is the living entity. When they engage in reciprocation of service and benediction, the living entity is said to be in the Atmarama position. This Atmarama position can be attained by one who knows the truth as it is. The truth is that the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the enjoyer, and that the living entities are meant for His service and enjoyment. One who knows this truth and who tries to engage all resources in the service of the Lord escapes all material reactions and influences of the modes of material nature. An example may be cited in this connection. Just as a materialist engages in constructing a big skyscraper, a devotee engages in constructing a big temple for Vishnu. Superficially, the skyscraper constructor and temple constructor are on the same level, for both are collecting wood, stone, iron, and other building materials. But the person who constructs a skyscraper is a materialist, and the person who constructs a temple of Vishnu is Atmarama. The materialist tries to satisfy himself in relation to his body by constructing a skyscraper, but the devotee tries to satisfy the super self, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, by constructing the temple. Although both are engaged in the association of material activities, the devotee is liberated and the materialist is conditioned. This is because the devotee who is constructing the temple has fixed his mind upon the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but the non-devotee who is constructing the skyscraper has his mind fixed in sense gratification. If, while performing any activity, even in material existence, one's mind is fixed upon the lotus feet of the Personality of Godhead, one will not be entangled or conditioned. The worker in devotional service in full Krishna consciousness is always independent of the influence of material nature. Text 27. When a person thus engages in devotional service and self-realization for many, many years in births, he becomes completely reluctant to enjoy any one of the material planets, even up to the highest planet, which is known as Brahmaloka. He becomes fully developed in Krishna consciousness. Purport. Anyone engaged in devotional service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead is known as a devotee. But there is a distinction between pure devotees and mixed devotees. A mixed devotee engages in devotional service for some material benefit, whereas a pure devotee engages in devotional service for the spiritual benefit of being eternally engaged in serving the Lord in His transcendental abode, in full bliss and knowledge. In material existence, when a devotee is not completely purified, he expects material benefit from the Lord in the form of relief from material miseries, or he wants material gain, advancement in knowledge of the relationship between the Supreme Personality of Godhead and the living entity, or knowledge as to the real nature of the Supreme Lord. When a person is transcendental to these conditions, he is called a pure devotee. He does not engage himself in the service of the Lord for any material benefit or for understanding of the Supreme Lord. His one interest is that he loves the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and he spontaneously engages in satisfying Him. The highest example of pure devotional service is that of the gopis in Vrindavan. They are not interested in understanding Krishna, but only in loving Him. That platform of love is the pure state of devotional service. Unless one is advanced to this pure state of devotional service, there is a tendency to desire elevation to a higher material position. A mixed devotee may try to enjoy a comfortable life on another planet with a greater span of life, such as on Brahmaloka. These are material desires, but because a mixed devotee engages in the service of the Lord, ultimately, after many, many lives of material enjoyment, he undoubtedly develops Krishna consciousness, and the symptoms of this Krishna consciousness is that he is no longer interested in any sort of materially elevated life. He does not even aspire to become a personality like Lord Brahma. Could you get the water cup? Thanks. Text 28 and 29. My devotee actually becomes self-realized by my unlimited causeless mercy, and thus, when freed from all doubts, he steadily progresses towards his destined abode, which is directly under the protection of my spiritual energy of unadulterated bliss. Thank you. That is the ultimate perfectional goal of the living entity. After giving up the present material body, the mystic devotee goes to that transcendental abode and never comes back. Purport. Actual self-realization means becoming a pure devotee of the Lord. The existence of a devotee implies the function of devotion and the object of devotion. Self-realization ultimately means to understand the personality of Godhead and the living entities, to know the individual self and the reciprocal exchanges of loving service between the Supreme Personality of Godhead and the living entity is real self-realization. This cannot be attained by the impersonalists or other transcendentalists. They cannot understand the science of devotional service. Devotional service is revealed to the pure devotee by the unlimited causeless mercy of the Lord. This is especially spoken of here by the Lord, mat prasadena, by my special grace. This is also confirmed in Bhagavad Gita. Only those who engage in devotional service with love and faith receive the necessary intelligence from the Supreme Personality of Godhead, so that gradually and progressively they can advance to the abode of the Personality of Godhead. Nishriyasya. Nishriyasa means the ultimate destination. Swasangstana indicates the impersonalists have no particular. Swasangstana indicates that the impersonalists have no particular place to stay. The impersonalists sacrifice their individuality so that the living spark can merge into the impersonal effulgence emanating from the transcendental body of the Lord. But the devotee has a specific abode. The planets rest in the sunshine, but the sunshine itself has no particular resting place. When one reaches a particular planet, then he has a resting place. The spiritual sky, which is known as Kaivalya, is simply blissful light on all sides, and it is under the protection of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. As stated in Bhagavad Gita 14:27, Brahmano hi pratishtaham. the impersonal Brahman effulgence rests on the body of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In other words, the bodily effulgence, where did I lose my place? Give me a second here. According to this desire of the particular devotee, he is offered a particular abode, which is known as Swa-Sangsthana, his desired destination. I think I switched.
It's just a few sentences away.
Above or below?
So you skipped a few sentences.
Yeah, somehow or other, when I pushed, I didn't, I'm using the sidebar, and I pushed, and it went to another place. So I'm trying to find my...
Just a little bit up.
From where I am now?
Yeah.
Yeah, I went down a lot.
So Brahmana Pratishta.
Mat Prasade. No, we already read that. Nishrasya, here we are, we're getting there.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Anyway, I'll start here. The impersonalists sacrifice their individuality so that the living spark can merge into the impersonal effulgence emanating from the transcendental body of the Lord, but the devotee has a specific abode. The planets rest in the sunshine, but the sunshine itself, this is a very nice, I'm glad I went back to this sentence because I wanted to read this again. The planets rest in the sunshine, but the sunshine itself has no particular resting place. How can a person think like that? Prabhupada. When one reaches a particular planet, then he has a resting place. The spiritual sky, which is known as Kaivalya, is simply blissful light on all sides, and it is under the protection of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. As stated in Bhagavad Gita 14:27, Brahmano hi pratishtaham. The impersonal Brahman effulgence rests on the body of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And this is where we were. In other words, the bodily effulgence of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is Kaivalya, or impersonal Brahman. In that impersonal effulgence, there are spiritual planets, which are known as Vaikunthas, chief of which is Krishna Loka. Some devotees are elevated to the Vaikuntha planets, and some are elevated to the planet Krishna Loka. According to the desire of the particular devotee, he is offered a particular abode, which is known as Swasangsthana, his desired destination. By the grace of the Lord, the self-realized devotee engaged in devotional service understands his destination even while in the material body. He therefore performs his devotional activities steadily, without doubting, and after quitting his material body, he at once reaches the destination for which he has prepared himself. After reaching that abode, he never comes back to this material world. The words lingad, vinirgame, which are used here, means after being freed from the two kinds of material bodies, subtle and gross. The subtle body is made of mind, intelligence, false ego, and contaminated consciousness. And the gross body is made of 5 elements: earth, water, fire, air, and ether. When one is transferred to the spiritual world, he gives up both the subtle and gross bodies of this material world. He enters the spiritual sky in his pure spiritual body and is stationed in one of the spiritual planets. Although the impersonalists also reach that spiritual sky after giving up the subtle and gross material bodies, they are not placed in the spiritual planets. As they desire, they are allowed to merge in the spiritual effulgence emanating from the transcendental body of the Lord. The word swasangsthanam is also very significant. As a living entity prepares himself, so he attains his abode. The impersonal Brahman effulgence is offered to the impersonalists, but those who want to associate with the Supreme Personality of Godhead in his transcendental form, as Narayana in the Vaikunthas, or with Krishna in Krishna Loka, go to those abodes, wherefrom they never return. Text 30. When a perfect yogi's attention is no longer attracted to the byproducts of mystic powers, which are manifestations of the external energy, his progress towards me becomes unlimited, and thus the power of death cannot overcome him. Purport. Yogis are generally attracted to the byproducts of mystic yogic power. I'll say that again. Yogis are generally attracted to the byproducts of mystic yogic power, for they can become smaller than the smallest or greater than the greatest, achieve anything they desire, have power even to create a planet, or bring anyone they like under their subjugation. Yogis who have incomplete information of the result of devotional service are attracted by these powers. But these powers are material. They have nothing to do with spiritual progress. As other material powers are created by the material energy, mystic yogic powers are also material. A perfect yogi's mind is not attracted by any material power, but is simply attracted by the unalloyed service of the Supreme Lord. For a devotee, the process of merging into the Brahman effulgence is considered to be hellish. The yogic power, or the preliminary perfection of yogic power to be able to control the senses, is automatically achieved. As for elevation to higher planets, a devotee considers this to be simply hallucinatory. A devotee's attention is concentrated only upon the eternal loving service of the Lord, and therefore the power of death has no influence over him. In such a devotional state, a perfect yogi can attain the status of immortal knowledge and bliss. Thus end the Bhaktivedanta purports of the third canto, 27th chapter of Srimad-Bhagavatam, entitled Understanding Material Nature. Haribol. It's like the drama of all dramas. One chapter after another, one act after another. Okay. Now we've reached chapter 28, entitled Kapila's Instructions on the Execution of Devotional Service. Text 1. The Personality of Godhead said, "My dear mother, O daughter of the king, now I shall explain to you the system of yoga, the object of which is to concentrate the mind. By practicing this system, one can become joyful and progressively advance towards the path of the Absolute Truth." Purport. The yoga process explained by Lord Kapila Dev in this chapter is authorized and standard, and therefore these instructions should be followed very carefully. To begin, the Lord says that by yoga practice, one can make progress towards understanding the Absolute Truth, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In the previous chapter, it has been clearly stated that the desired result of yoga is not to achieve some wonderful mystic power. One should not be at all attracted by such mystic power, but should attain progressive realization on the path of understanding the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This is also confirmed in Bhagavad Gita, which states in the last verse of the 6th chapter that the greatest yogi is he who constantly thinks of Krishna within himself, or he who is Krishna conscious. It is stated here that by following the system of yoga, one can become joyful. Lord Kapila, the personality of Godhead, who is the highest authority on yoga, here explains the yoga system known as Ashtanga Yoga, which comprises 8 different practices, namely Yama, Niyama, Asana, Pranayama, Pratyahara, Dharana, Dhyana, and Samadhi. By all these stages of practice, one must realize Lord Vishnu, who is the target of all yoga. There are so-called yoga practices in which one concentrates the mind on voidness or on the impersonal, but this is not approved by the authorized yoga system as explained by Kapila Dev. Even Patanjali explains that the target of yoga, of all yoga, is Vishnu. Ashtanga Yoga is therefore part of Vaishnava practice because its ultimate goal is realization of Vishnu. The achievement of success in yoga is not acquisition of mystic power, which is condemned in the previous chapter, but rather freedom from all material designations and situation in one's constitutional position. That is the ultimate achievement in yoga practice. Text 2. One should execute his prescribed duties to the best of his ability and avoid performing duties not allotted to him. One should be satisfied with as much gain as he achieves by the grace of the Lord, and one should worship the lotus feet of a spiritual master. Purport. In this verse, there are many important words which could be very elaborately explained, but we shall briefly discuss the important aspects of each. The final statement is Atmavich Charanacharam. Charanar Chanam. Atmavit means a self-realized soul, or bona fide spiritual master. Unless one is self-realized and knows what his relationship with the Supersoul is, he cannot be a bona fide spiritual master. Here it is recommended that one should seek out a bona fide spiritual master and surrender unto him, Archanam, for by inquiring from and worshipping him, one can learn spiritual activities. The first recommendation is Swadharma Charanam. As long as we have this material body, there are various duties prescribed for us. Such duties are divided by a system of 4 social orders: Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, and Shudra. These particular duties are mentioned in the Shastra, and particularly in Bhagavad Gita. Swadharma Charanam means that one must discharge the prescribed duties of his particular division of society faithfully and to the best of his ability. One should not accept another's duty. If one is born in a particular society or community, he should perform the prescribed duties for that particular division. If, however, one is fortunate enough to transcend the designation of birth in a particular society or community by being elevated to the standard of spiritual identity, then his swadharma, or duty, is solely that of serving the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The actual duty of one who is advanced in Krishna consciousness is to serve the Lord. As long as one remains in the bodily concept of life, he may act according to the duties of social convention. But if one is elevated to the spiritual platform, he must simply serve the Supreme Lord. That is the real execution of Swadharma. Text 3. One should cease performing conventional religious practices and should be attracted to those which lead to salvation. One should eat very frugally and should always remain secluded so that he can achieve the highest perfection of life. Purport. It is recommended herein that religious practice for economic development or for the satisfaction of sense desires should be avoided. Religious practices should be executed only to gain freedom from the clutches of material nature. It is stated in the beginning of Srimad-Bhagavatam that the topmost religious practice is that by which one can attain to the transcendental devotional service of the Lord without reason or cause. Such religious practice is never hampered by any impediments, and by its performance one actually becomes satisfied. Here this is recommended as moksha dharma, religious practice for salvation, or transcendence of the clutches of material contamination. Generally, people execute religious practices for economic development or sense gratification, but this is not recommended for one who wants to advance in yoga. The next important phrase is mita medyadanam, which means one should eat very frugally. It is recommended in the Vedic literatures that a yogi eat only half what he desires according to his hunger. If one is so hungry that he could devour 1 pound of foodstuffs, then instead of eating 1 pound, he should consume only half a pound and supplement this with 4 ounces of water. 1/4 of the stomach should be left empty for the passage of air in the stomach. If one eats in this manner, he will avoid indigestion and disease. The yogi should eat in this way as recommended in the Srimad-Bhagavatam and all other standard scriptures. The yogi should live in a secluded place where his yoga practice will not be disturbed. Text 4. One should practice non-violence and truthfulness, and should avoid thieving, and be satisfied with possessing as much as he needs for his maintenance. He should abstain from sex life, perform austerity, be clean, study the Vedas, and worship the supreme form of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Purport. The word Purusharchanam in this verse means worshipping the Supreme Personality of Godhead, especially the form of Lord Krishna. In Bhagavad Gita, it is confirmed by Arjuna that Krishna is the original Purusha, or Personality of Godhead, Purusham Shashvatam. Therefore, in yoga practice, one not only must concentrate his mind on the person of Krishna, but must also worship the form or deity of Krishna daily. A brahmachari practices celibacy, controlling his sex life. One cannot enjoy unrestricted sex life and practice yoga. This is rascaldom. So-called yogis advertise that one can go on enjoying as one likes and simultaneously become a yogi, but this is totally unauthorized. It is very clearly explained here that one must observe celibacy. Brahmacharyam means that one leads his life simply in relationship with Brahman, or in full Krishna consciousness. Those who are too addicted to sex life cannot observe the regulations which will lead them to Krishna consciousness. Sex life should be restricted to persons who are married. A person whose sex life is restricted in marriage is also called a brahmachari. The word asteyam is also very important for a yogi. Asteyam means to refrain from theft. In the broader sense, everyone who accumulates more than he needs is a thief. According to spiritual communism, one cannot possess more than he needs for his personal maintenance. That is the law of nature. Anyone who accumulates more money or more possessions than he needs is called a thief, and one who simply accumulates wealth without spending for sacrifice or for worship of the personality of Godhead is a great thief. Swadhyaya means reading the authorized Vedic scriptures. Even if one is not Krishna conscious and is practicing the yoga system, he must read standard Vedic literatures in order to understand. Performance of yoga alone is not sufficient. Narottam Das Thakur, a great devotee and acharya in the Gaudiya Vaishnava Sampradaya, says that all spiritual activities should be understood from these three sources, namely saintly persons, standard scriptures, and the spiritual master. These three guides are very important for progress in spiritual life. The spiritual master prescribes standard literature for the prosecution of the yoga and devotional service, and he himself speaks only from spiritual reference. Therefore, reading standard scriptures is necessary for executing yoga. Practicing yoga without reading the standard literatures is simply a waste of time. Text 5. One must observe silence, acquire steadiness by practicing different yogic postures, control the breathing of the vital air, withdraw the senses from sense objects, and thus concentrate the mind on the heart. Purport. The yogic practices in general, and Hatha Yoga in particular, are not ends in themselves. They are means to the end of attaining steadiness. First, one must be able to sit properly, and then the mind and attention will become steady. Will become steady enough for practicing yoga. Gradually, one must control the circulation of vital air, and with such control, he will be able to, and with such control, he will be able to withdraw the senses from sense objects. In the previous verse, it is stated that one must observe celibacy, the most important aspect of sense control is controlling sex life. That is called brahmacharya. By practicing the different sitting postures and controlling the vital air, one can control and restrain the senses from unrestricted sense enjoyment. Text 6. Fixing the vital air and the mind in one of the 6 circles of vital air circulation within the body, thus concentrating one's mind on the transcendental pastimes of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is called samadhi or samadhana of the mind. Purport. There are 6 circles of vital air circulation within the body. The first circle is within the belly. The second circle is in the area of the heart. The third is in the area of the lungs. The fourth is on the palate. The fifth is between the eyebrows. And the highest, the 6th circle, is above the brain. One has to fix his mind and the circulation of the vital air, and thus think of the transcendental pastimes of the Supreme Lord. It is never mentioned that one should concentrate on the impersonal or void. It is clearly stated, Vaikuntha Lila. Lila means pastimes. Unless the absolute truth, the personality of Godhead, has transcendental activities, where is the scope for thinking of these pastimes? It is through the processes of devotional service, chanting and hearing of the pastimes of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, that one can achieve this concentration. As described in the Srimad-Bhagavatam, the Lord appears and disappears according to its relationships with different devotees. The Vedic literatures contain many narrations of Lord pastimes, including the Battle of Kurukshetra, and historical facts relating to the life and precepts of devotees like Prahlad Maharaj, Dhruva Maharaj, and Ambarish Maharaj. One need only concentrate his mind on one such narration and become always absorbed in its thought. Then he will be in Samadhi. Samadhi is not an artificial bodily state. It is the state achieved when the mind is virtually absorbed in thoughts of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Text 7. By these processes, or by any other true process, one must control the contaminated, unbridled mind, which is always attracted by material enjoyment, and thus fix himself in thought of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Purport. Etayar anyais cha. The general yoga process entails observing the rules and regulations, practicing the different sitting postures, concentrating the mind on the vital circulation of the air, and then thinking of the Supreme Personality of Godhead in his Vaikuntha pastimes. This is the general process of yoga. This same concentration can be achieved by other recommended processes, and therefore anyais-cha, other methods, also can be applied. The essential point is that the mind, which is contaminated by material attraction, has to be bridled and concentrated on the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It cannot be fixed on something void or impersonal. For this reason, so-called yoga practices of voidism and impersonalism are not recommended in any standard yoga shastra. The real yogi is the devotee, because his mind is always concentrated on the pastimes of Lord Krishna. Therefore, Krishna consciousness is the topmost yoga system. Okay, I'm going to stop there. Now it's going to get to the practical things to do. Okay, let's have some reflections. Anything that's stuck in our minds that we want to discuss or reflect on, inquire about, whatever. Okay, Shamagori is going to start things off. Here you go.
It is a little bit like Bhagavad Gita 6th chapter, when Krishna is going through these heavy stuff that one have to restrain the mind and focus on the tip of the nose and with spine erect. It's just for generally is we don't start like that. It doesn't seem to be like how we approach the devotional service, that we start with controlling the mind and the senses, and so would like to know that why Kapila Devi is doing it like that.
Okay, first thing is that this is Satya Yuga. That's the first thing. And second thing is that in the Kali Yuga, we can't do it. And the proof of the thing is that Arjuna refused. Now Arjuna is an extremely qualified person, even materially. You know, he's Kshatriya, pure Kshatriya. He's the greatest warrior in the world. I mean, the level of mental control that those personalities had to have to bring the mantras for using celestial weapons and things like that is beyond our conception. Right in the middle of the battlefield, he's being attacked by all sides, by all kinds of heavy persons, and he has to remember the mantras clearly, and then, charm the arrows that he shoots, and does all kinds of things. But it requires activity, very heavy activity. He's not meant for sitting, Gopi Pranadana Prabhu made a joke. He said the Puranas, even the Bhagavatam, is mainly about activities of Kshatriyas, because it's interesting the things that Kshatriyas do, They have kingdoms, and they have, many wives and progeny, and they do things. But, the Brahmins, they just sit down, do achman and meditate. So, how much adventure you're going to have. People like that, if they have to do something, they bring the Kshatriyas in, like when Vishishta and others, they brought, Rama to help them with demons and whatever. So that's one thing. But the other thing is that, relatively speaking, the four regulative principles that Prabhupada asked us to do strictly, it's as hard for us to do that than it is for the yogis to do what they did in the Satya Yuga. So that's why Prabhupada didn't emphasize those other things. Because that level of yoga and that level of lifestyle, style of controlling the mind and controlling the senses, is not practical for us. And most persons who do it are just kind of putting on a show. They're pretending to get some kind of, aggrandizement for themselves, or, whatever. That's the reason. We have to follow our Acharya. We have to follow according to the time we're in, place. Even Krishna said to Arjuna, it's hard, yes, you're right, it's hard, but it's possible by constant practice and detachment. But still, at the end, he just said, surrender to me. Because he could see there wasn't anything else that Arjuna could do, or anybody for that matter, in this Kali Yuga.
It's interesting that in that chapter, when Krishna says when Krishna says it's hard, but it's possible, just practice, and then Arjuna just said, so what if I don't succeed? He doesn't trust it at all.
Yeah, that's right.
We have a reflection on here, online.
We have a reflection online.
This is from Narendra Gautam Seti.
Narendra Gautam Seti.
Yes.
Hare Krishna, Narendra.
Also, Vaisheshika Prabhu says Hare Krishna.
Hey Vaish, Hare Krishna.
Reflection from Narendra. How the devotee should eat 50% food and leave some space for air to improve the digestion. That was his reflection. Yes.
Well, Srila Prabhupada said that in the beginning of spiritual life, you can take as much prasadam if you like, if you need. But that's when things get a little bit more regulated, and a little bit more, you're a little bit more attached to spiritual life, then you can gradually, you feel like controlling and eating not so much, like that. So yes, it's true. That's the level of our austerities.
Rati Manjari also has a question.
Yes.
Rati says, Dear Guru Maharaj, all glories unto you. Please accept my respectful obeisances. Thank you for continuously throwing us the saving rope of transcendental knowledge by reading online day after day. I have a question. Since I am on the level of mixed devotion at best, is it wrong for me and those like me to desire to go back to Godhead?
No.
Oh, and Narendra said it's Narihari Dev Das.
Oh, Narahari Dev.
Yeah.
Narahari Dev. Jeho.
I also had a little reflection.
Please. Reflect away. We should want to go back to Godhead.
Yeah, that makes sense. In the 28th verse, it says, "My devotee actually becomes self-realized by my unlimited causeless mercy." So it's first by Krishna's mercy, not really by our works, that we become self-realized. So that was just a tiny little reflection.
It's not just at first. It's any time, on any level, in any way, in any form, in any lifetime. It's by the mercy that we of the super soul and Krishna that we become self-realized. And it's right what you said, that it's not by our own work, but we work properly as we're obligated, without attachment, to please Krishna.
Yeah.
And then when Krishna is pleased, the reciprocation of Krishna from within the heart gives us realization. We don't get realization by our own strength, on any level, in any stage of spiritual advancement. It may appear like that sometimes, but it's not really. It's always Krishna's mercy that helps us to advance.
Yeah. The 4th chapter of the Gita really helped me understand that.
Matt's saying that the 4th chapter of the Gita helped him understand that.
Is there anything that we achieve by our own endeavor?
Well, there is a statement by, we were talking about this last night. There is a statement by Sanatana Goswami in Brihat Bhagavatamrita that one should try by all means to act with humility. So what that means is there is something that we have to do, and inherent in the idea that it's only by Krishna's mercy. It's inherent in that idea is that we have to act in such a way to invoke Krishna's mercy. So the point is that it's not a cause and effectual relationship by what we act, what we do, that we get, spiritual advancement or Krishna consciousness. It requires Krishna's mercy. But at the same, so it seems like it from an external point of view that what we're doing is getting it done, but what we're doing is actually attracting the attention of Krishna, and eventually, attracting him to us. Because there's a verse in the 11th canto, I don't remember, I'm Vaisheshika Prabhu, he knows all the shlokas. He would know this verse. I feel embarrassed that if he's, now that I know that he's watching, I'm completely embarrassed. But there's a verse that says that, the devotee, in the 11th canto, the devotee, despite not being perfect, or even sometimes not being able to behave according to the highest standard, should be satisfied and continue to do devotional service. And Krishna, he becomes attracted to that mentality. Yayatam mam prapadyante tang sataiva vajamyaham mama vart manavartante manushak partisarvashaha. As they approach me, I reward them accordingly. So I guess you could say that the thing that we can do is desire the right thing. Desire the right thing will push us or inspire us to do the right thing. And when we do the right thing, eventually Krishna, when he recognizes us, and yes, that's the verse I was thinking, that Krishna has to select us in order for us to go back to Godhead. He has to actually select us. That's the verse I was thinking of in the 11th canto.
If we act to attract Krishna's mercy, so why do we say that Krishna's mercy is causeless?
Because he can do it or not, whatever he wants. Even if you do the right thing, Krishna may not, reciprocate exactly the way we want or the way we think he should or whatever. It's always up to him. He's always completely free. He's not obligated. He's not, obliged.
When I started reading the books, when I joined, it really worried me. I was really worried that if it's causeless, then what's the insurance that I'm going to get it if there is actually no cause that I can do? I can't make it. So there's no cause, then I was like, maybe I'm going to miss out.
Well, that brings in the idea of faith. If you hear nicely how Krishna reciprocates with his devotees in the Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita, and all these scriptures, especially Chaitanya Charitamrita, then the faith is necessary. The unflinching, Prabhupada defines it as unflinching. There's another word, trust. Unflinching trust in something sublime, and that faith allows us to hear properly and to want to act in the way that Krishna would like to act. Because ultimately, we're not looking for it ourselves at all. So that maybe in the beginning, that's the way we're afraid of that. But after a while, we're not worried about that at all. We're trying to please Krishna. And then when we do that, then Krishna reciprocates with us in such a way as to remove that fear, to remove the difficulties and the impediments. And when those are removed, then we don't have any reason to feel hesitant or like that. I think I'm going to stop tonight early because we've been working out the last few days, and I got a lot of things that I need to do before we have to move on. So I'm going to try to get to rest early night and then do the things I need to do to catch up. I'm way behind on lots of things. So thank you very much, everybody, and especially Vaisheshika Prabhu. I don't know if you're still watching. I'm sure you just every once in a while just catch a few minutes here and there because you're so busy person. But if you are out there, I want to say thank you very much for giving that little inspiration to me, that to write, hello, Hare Krishna. Thank you so much, Hare Krishna. Srimad-Bhagavatam ki jai, Samaveda Bhakta-vrinda ki jai. Srila Kapila Dev's teachings to Devahuti ki jai. Gaur Premanandi, Hari Hari Bo. Thank you very much. See you tomorrow night, same place, same station, to hear more from Kapila Dev. Hare Krishna.